Okay, coming back for part 5. You have to be spiritually alert and aware, okay? And this is what your God ordained spouse needs to be. You need to be able to communicate. And what I was saying was the reason that the curse was even instilled on your God ordained spouse or instilled on Adam and Eve was because he did not what? Pay attention to instructions. There are elements and things that needed to be paid attention to that were being ignored. Do not, when you are running a business, marriage, or financial anything, ignore warning signs. The little foxes are what spoil the vine. In this movie, the man ignored when his wife was telling him, I need your attention. I'm reminded of the song from Her, Focus. Focus on me. Your God ordained spouse, he has a lot of things, and you're going to have to pay attention. And even when you come into marriage, for those of you that aren't married, and for those that you are, you probably can agree to and attest to this, that at a certain point in time, if you are not paying attention, you reach a comfort zone. This is what that man's problem was. He reached a comfort zone that he thought that she gonna be there. She ain't nobody I need to worry about. But the reason that we as women maintain connection with our spouses is because what? Somebody made this great point years ago. The reason that women cheat is because we're looking for affection. The reason men cheat is respect. Lack of respect. But we need that emotional connection and affirmation and affirming with our partner. The reason this woman in this film stepped out of her marriage was because the man was giving her that. Let's go back to what I was saying about mind hunters. The enemy is seeking to profile you to get an entry point in order to destroy the connection joint partnership by looking for an opening. So what is he going to do? Affirm the weaker of the two, which is always the woman. Eve was approached by Satan. So he's going to affirm you. In a joint partnership and or business, he's going to come after the woman unless you are spiritually discerning. And usually, if the woman's spiritually discerning, the man may not be as spiritually discerning, so the enemy might come towards him. This is why we got to pay attention to what? Chess moves. I not only did a broadcast on this, but I actually believe I did about 3 podcasts talking about chess moves. I think I did like 2 or 3 podcasts talking about chess moves in the ministry. So it's about 6 different references to chess moves that you have to pay close attention to when operating. Because the enemy is constantly trying to find a way in, and you got to know that you are operating a chessboard. This is chess, not checkers. You need to know your position. You need to play your position. You need to operate with the highest amount of wisdom as to how to move your pieces on the board. And you need to recognize your weaker pieces to your stronger pieces and trade those pieces out. And use those pieces. Use your weaker pieces to trade out for stronger pieces of your opponent. Because that's most definitely what your enemy is doing. Understand in that these are the people that are surrounding you. People are brought into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. You need to recognize who these individuals are and what their motives are. There are 4 to 5 different types of people that are going to come into your life. And when you recognize those people, these 4 to 5 different people are going to come in. They're either going to be the positive version of the people or they're going to be the negative version of the people. And you have to recognize either. You have to recognize the narcissist. You have to recognize that twin flame. You got to recognize that person operating in an air of godliness but no God in them. And you got to realize that person you need to quickly get rid of, because this is the person that is going to destroy you. But you also got to recognize the person that is for you. You got to recognize the person that is sent by God. You got to recognize the person that is divinely aligned partnership with you. And you got to recognize the people you got to keep. You understand? And you got to position them. Go back to the harmony chart accordingly. There are 3 levels of positioning for these people. They're the ones that are closest to you, and then there's the ones farthest away. Position accordingly. Your enemies need to be as far away from you as possible. And your inner circle needs to be the ones that ain't paying that much attention. They need to be on your secondary level, because they ain't paying enough attention to protect you. And the ones that are paying enough attention to protect you, they need to be as close as possible to you. Meaning, these are the ones that got the eyes and ears to pay attention to your issues and give you advice, sound advice. And then you got your inner sanctum, which is your family. And the sad thing I find is people, and this is how you know you're in the wrong marriage. And I'm not even going to say that. I'm correct myself. Some of you, you're not in the wrong marriage. It's just the fact that God hasn't gotten to the heart of that individual. And because of that, you're going to have to deal accordingly with that individual. If God's saying this is your one, then you have to act accordingly with that individual. You just have to pray over them in their areas, their pockets, their holes, those places, so that you can align yourself appropriately with this individual. But until then, they may end up being on one of them outer circles. It can only come in closer when you come to the realization that they are a safe space. Go back to what we said in Deja Vu review. Because you are testing. Dana rated a video where she said you're cross-checking. You're cross-checking to make sure that this person is somebody that you can trust or not. And they're doing the same thing. But when you're in the midst of a battle, you can't have somebody that's close to you being a hindrance to you, because the enemy is attacking them. And then you got to be distracted because you're trying to protect them from an attack. What you need to be focusing on this, because the enemy will do that all the time. He will attack your kids. He will attack your husband. He will attack your household. He will attack your finances. He'll attack every area he can attack to distract you when you are on the brink of a breakthrough. You must be able to discern and observe accordingly. And then once you have discerned and observed accordingly, you need to overview those types of people. We already just went through that. But then you have to map out the circle of territory in which you are in. Remember, Adam is supposed to till the field, right? But you have a territory. Remember, the Garden of Eden was territory. I did a 3 or 4 part video on the Garden of Eden. Okay? Which is a territorial thing. And it maps out your territory. Once you understand your territory, then you can understand how to operate within that territory. I'm going to give you this because I talked about this in the broadcast. I talked about building a house. You have to understand the history of the land in which you are going into. If you are being moved from one location to another to establish a groundwork with you and your spouse, Your husband has to be able to till that ground, whether it's an industry, whether it is the land in which you're called to move into. He has to understand it. Next, you need to understand the spiritual history of the city in which you're living in. God gave me, through Apostle Youngblood, I love this man's work. He said you need to do a spirit map. I looked up spirit mapping. Whenever you move into a new territory, you need to map the spirit in that area. It's a 10 to 12 questionnaire of things that you need to do research on in the city in which you are moving into. You need to know about the talismans that they worship in that city. You need to know about the ground. You need to know about what died there. You need to know about what spiritual wars took place. Are there a series of spiritual wars that took place in certain areas that keep happening every 5, 10, 20 years in certain areas? The war of this, the this of this. Oh, look, it was a natural disaster, but it happened in the same area. That's a specific curse. Is it a repetitive issue that keeps happening? Is it keep popping up every 20 years? Oh, that's a curse. And it's your job to be willing to know how that operates. You need to understand, even in the job you're walking into, that there may be a gatekeeper in that job that may be trying to keep you out. I heard a minister put this so beautifully. Thank you, Ruckins McKinley. He said that there are industries that you're going to come into that as a child of God, God's going to put you at the bottom of these industries. But there are certain gatekeepers that operate in the top executive positions in the industries, in these corporations and companies that literally have witchcraft covenants that are praying against children of God to prevent them from leveling up in these companies. Oh, you didn't know that? I didn't know it either until I saw that broadcast. And I saw that about 5 years ago. These industries that literally are doing occultic cult rituals in houses, sacrificing animals, and some are sacrificing people, doing, oh, it's a soul food dinner that they're having. No, they're soul cooking. High level people, politicians, celebrities, high level people sitting up there having these dinner parties, but then they try to brush it under the rug when it gets into the news feed and try to make sure ain't nobody see that. But if you saw it and you looked it up, you can see that this is not, it's straight witchcraft. They're worshiping demons and gods. But all we're doing is it. Political dinners, major events. Oh, they brought in the chef that can do. You know, soul cooking is literally an attack against the individual. Witchcraft, and it very well may be cannibalism. As a sacrifice in order to be able to, oh, prevent these people from moving forward in the company. To protect. But hey, remember in the Bible where they would sacrifice the oxen and they would sacrifice, but they doing it with people and putting them on altars to their gods. I remember they would have the big feast. But they're doing it for oh, we're trying to make sure this person gets into this political position. We're making sure this celebrity gets into this particular slot. We're making sure that this particular person gets into this company. Know where you're going. Understand that there are people that are already positioned there. And the last thing they want is you to come in. And don't come in with this kind of knowledge. I already know I fought all the time. Because I know when you know what you know, and you know that you know, they don't want you there. Okay? Know that what you're called to do is to keep things in order for God. Strategize through whatever it is that the Lord is putting your hands to. Maybe He's having you create programs, coaching, giving advice, working through to help people. Maybe He recognized they're a whole. Maybe there's a people that don't have a bunch of awareness in a particular industry, and people are getting railroaded, and He's sending you in. It's like, people get railroaded in this area. People ain't got no money in this area. How are we helping them get money? How are we helping them maintain? How are we helping them protect their assets? And I'm going to send you in to do it. When given instruction, recognize the instruction that you've been given. Follow them for where and how they're positioned. How are you handling this level will determine whether the Lord will release you into the next level. Are you a good steward of what you have right now in order for God to uplevel you to something bigger and better? You must be a good steward, and He will add unto you later. You must also dress the part. You have to change your look, you have to change your appearance, and depending on where you're going, you're going to have to change everything. You're going to have to start looking in alignment. Now, some might say, well, you can't look like... Yes, you can. But you ain't going to sit up there and look like the enemy, walking around looking like, oh... I'm sure you can think of a lot of them that walk around looking like hoes, calling themselves housewives. And they want to argue at you about being, I'm a feminist woman. You're what has been hired to set the trend, is what that individual is. Understand there are 7 mountains. For some of you, you're called to multiple levels of those 7 mountains. But you need to understand what land you are called to, and you need to understand how you are to till it, to operate in it, and to structure it. Because if you do not, you're going to go in there and get run over. And you have to understand that the Lord is going to send you divine helpers, destiny helpers, divinely aligned people, divinely assigned people, partnerships, friendships, and even your spouse is a divine alignment. And if you're coming into this and you don't know nothing about this, the person that you may be involved with right now may not be them. And you may have to come to grips with that. If they're willing to walk with you through this process, good. But you have to determine what you are called to do, and they have to determine what they are called to do. And you got to figure out if that's going to work together, because God is not going to have 2 unequally yoked people together. Even if you come in together, He may separate you. But the person that He assigns you to later on is going to be the one that can carry you through where He's trying to call you to be. I've seen multiple people end up divorced from the person they started their journey with God with, and ended up marrying the person that was fully and completely aligned to who they were supposed to be with. Because they were 2 peas in a pod. And they literally worked well together for what it is they were called to do. I'm never telling you to divorce your partner. But if that person does not get in alignment with God, He is not going to make you stay with that individual if it's going to hinder His plans. It is what it is. There are godly people, but there are also people that have been sent and assigned to you that are from the devil, that are demonically destiny destroyers, that literally will demonically derail your destiny, hold you up, sit amongst you, aligned and assigned to be a mold to your enemies, literally be a leaky faucet, your Judas, partners, Judas, friendships that are only sat there because they are trying to distract or create a wedge between you and your spouse. Females that are looking at your husband wrong, males that are looking at you wrong, and people wanting to take you and your spouse out of position through generational bondages, emotional and generational oppressions. And they are watching to make sure that you do not see them, but they are seeing how you operate. Am I making sense? The man that came in requested her. There are enemies that are going to request your presence. And you have to have a level of discernment to understand this isn't a person that I need to be around. This person is a threat. You can feel it in your countenance. Review back to what I was saying when I felt something come over me and I said, I reject this. You have to be willing to see that this person is trying to do something to you spiritually, and you must reject it. And then once you reject it, you need to set yourself accordingly to fight spiritually against what that attack has been sent to do. Because it's a long game attack. What it's sent to do is create a level of confusion amongst you and the people around you. If you go back and you pay attention to, the movie Now You See Me, and even any of the other movies that came against the relationship between the God-ordained husband and wife. They are going, even Stella got her groove back. That's a family element. The relationships associated to you with your family that try to come against your relationship with this person. Stella got her groove back. Came on last night. Again. Understanding these relationships come in to bring about a level of confusion. All it is an attack by a monitoring spirit seeking to gain access to your communication between you and your spouse in order to breed and or sow tares and plant derision or delusion between you and your spouse, between you and the thing that you are building. Because if it can't stop you, it has to cause chaos in what it is that you're putting your hands to. And the best way to do that is to sow discord between you and your spouse. Your relationship with your husband is the most precious relationship you have, especially if God ordained it. You know if God didn't ordain it because of the way that it fights you. When you come into God, if that relationship starts viciously fighting you, that means that it may not very well be of God. If it is, God's got to separate you from it. I done already said this about 15 times. He got to separate you from it for a season while he deals with it and deals with you. And maybe he'll bring it back together. If not, he's going to separate it completely. And you have to allow it to be separated. Because if you don't, you will end up in a level of warfare trying to hold on to something that does not belong there. And you will deal with witchcraft. You will deal with covenants. You will deal with things coming against you to hold you into curses and strongholds along your bloodline that are trying to keep you from reaching your goals. And this is a constant fight. You get out of one trap, the enemy's trying to find another trap. You may get a season of rest, but then there's another season of war. And you have to position yourself properly and acutely in order to be able to walk into the right position, to be able to receive and walk into what it is that you're called to walk into. Because there are gatekeepers there, and with those gatekeepers, they are on assignment to keep you out of the high place. I literally had a dream the other week, and I was trying to figure out, why am I seeing Marcus Houston? Because I was like, Roger from Sister. Do you know that his name literally means high place and keeper? A gatekeeper out of a high place. They want to keep you out of high places. Territorial demons that like to confuse you with constructed assignments in certain places to prevent you from coming into those places. Romantic relationships. You can date a high-valued man and end up becoming the pass-around chick because that man is operating in a spirit of narcissism that is trying to destroy your character. And even if you aren't a pass-around chick, the enemy will create a false narrative around you so that people will recognize the reality of who you actually are, which is sent by God. That's why the enemy has to cloak you in a veil to prevent people that are supposed to connect with you from connecting to you. So you have to be seen through forms of false levels of word curses and communications that the enemy is using to come against the heirs, so that you will not connect with the right people. Or then if you do connect with those right people, he's got to consistently breed spiritual warfare to create doubt and fear and confusion and all that. I need to disconnect from this individual. It's one relationship I have had for 8 years, and as long as I've had this relationship with this individual, there's been so much warfare. Every time I get close to a breakthrough with this individual, it's either they'll attack me or they'll attack her. Every time. Every time. And I say it very clearly, and I have not separated myself because God did not tell me to. That's the only reason I'm still in that relationship. Because the second God says go, I'm out. It's just the truth. If God says it, you got to follow it, or he's going to make it distressful for you to maintain it. I remember there was a woman that told a story about a scam that was done against mothers, where these men were taking money from women and using it to pay bills of other women, buy cars, and do all of this. And then they were borrowing the cars that they bought for the other women, and they using it to parade around these women that ain't got that much, but they turning around and taking the money and paying for other things. And they were just doing this, rotating it. It was a game. These were a clique of men doing this to women. This is how the enemy operates. He sets you up. Or religious bondages. How people view you, even in your own view from the church and from godly people operating in religious spirits. I constantly have to ask the Lord about certain things and certain people I associate myself with, because I'm like, is this right? But if that's the case, is that right? I want to make sure that I'm doing right, because it's like, am I seeing this right? Maybe you're allowing that person to do that because of that reason, but I just want to understand why you're allowing this person to do that, where you have these people, and couldn't that be a tainting So I ask questions of the Lord, and you should, because you don't want to come in alignment and agreement. There's another young woman, Sunray Speaks. She just released a video of a warning about a specific individual, because this particular man in his ministry had people fooled, just like I was saying. They had been absorbed in his charisma. And she said that she went to his ministry. She watched his ministry a few times, and she she ended up going to his church once. And she said that she knew something was off, and she came out of alignment and agreement with it. She got baptized in her shower, and she said that when the Lord brought her deliverance from that, she said she threw up so many times behind having been associated with that guy's ministry. Know who you are associating yourself with. If God says no, please separate yourself. If God says no about me, but I need you to know that it was God that said no, because I know the relationship I have with God. Because the enemy will say the same thing and try to sound like God. Every godly there's no God in him. Know the relationship, that individual. That's why I'm blessed for the people that have come, because I always ask the Lord, send people that need what I have to say. But I'm talking to the Lord. I'm in his presence. I'm doing what I need to do to be what you guys need. And my prayer is to continue even when I move into my next phase of life, to be able to continue to be in this space with you guys, to be in the space with the Lord, and to learn how to operate in that season with God the way I need to stay close with God. Because that's going to be necessary in order to cover my relationship, to cover my family, to cover my children, to cover this ministry, to cover everything that it is that I'm supposed to put my hands to, even with my spouse. And you have to know that. Or else you got Harleys that are going to come into your life, and they're going to try to come between you and your spouse. They're going to be Jezebelic women that are going to come up and try to get between you and your husband. When you see warfare coming, before the warfare hits, I'm going to need you to start going into consecration and pray about that. The reason that this woman could have had and avoided the issue that she had, she didn't take it to who she needed to take it to. She didn't report it to her boss. She did not tell her. Well, she did tell her husband, but her husband, the instructions, he was not paying attention. So he missed